just because you're a smaller brand doesn't mean that you shouldn't have those standards and really buy into the hospitality.
I hear so many people in F&B say, I want to learn from McDonald's, but it's because they are better than anyone else in terms of systemization and scaling. So if you want to have a well systemized business that can run without you, maybe you can sell one day, go and look at what some of these brands do. Welcome to the 5-Star Fitness Podcast. My name is Jack Thomas, one of the co-founders of The Fit Guide, and this show is all about raising the standards of the fitness industry through hospitality. I'm joined today by our co-founder, Matt Lavender, and today we're going to talk about brands that excel when it comes to experience and hospitality. Now, this is based on our over 400 visits to boutique clubs across the globe, and I'm really excited to get into it. I've got some great brands that I want to talk about and I want to mention. Matt, we're going to kick off with just a little reminder for people, or perhaps if it's their first time listening to the show, how do we evaluate the world's leading boutique clubs?
Yeah, so we send anonymous evaluators in each of the cities that we've launched in, and they go and do a mystery inspection of the fitness club, everything from the reception services, the class, the after and before class experience. And we've developed 250 standards, which we developed with the industry, hospitality and fitness. And based on their score and their rating, they will get an award. So award of excellence, for example, for those clubs that score over 80% and 5-star for those that score over 90%. So it's objective, totally anonymous, and that's how we do it.
Yeah, I think it's important to note that it's an objective process. It's not about what the evaluator thinks. We don't say, did you enjoy the class? Because maybe someone just didn't necessarily enjoy the type of training, or maybe just didn't quite click with the instructor. And that's not what we're looking for. We're not looking for opinions. We're looking for objective yes or no standards, which is the way that restaurants, hotels, spas are all evaluated as well. And it means that it's consistent. It means that if we evaluate a club in Los Angeles or Singapore or London or Dubai, we're evaluating it in the same way, and we can compare like to like. And that enables us to have the kind of conversations that we're going to have today of the brands that really excel in hospitality and fitness. And I want to go a little bit deeper before we go into the brands that we're going to highlight today. Again, it's based on data. It's not based on our own personal opinions, although we might sprinkle in some of our own experiences, of course, when we visited cities and we visited these brands. We are both consumers of fitness as well. We are looking, of course, at the ones that scored highly. We're looking at the ones that demonstrate excellence. As you mentioned, Matt, over 80% in our process. So 80% of the 250 standards will get our award of excellence. Now, that is really what we want the whole industry to be going for every time. If Bangkok is ever launched, or if Base expands into one of the cities that we've launched, that's what I want our studios to be getting every single time. 80% award of excellence. And over 90% is really the best of the best. And it's only 3 to 4% of clubs that have got that, which represents really the top 1 to 2% in the fitness industry. And today's brands that we're highlighting, we're really looking at consistency. So I think most brands, or a lot of brands, can get it right every now and again, but which are the ones that get it right almost every time across multiple markets? Finally, we are looking at hospitality. So the human connection, the things that the coach, the front desk staff, the team do to make you feel special, the experience. We are not evaluating the workout. You have one workout, 10 coaches or 10 consumers are going to give you 10 different opinions on whether you liked the workout or not. We are looking at the experience. So with all of that in mind, Matt, you go first. Which brand would you like to highlight as one of your top brands of the many that we visited?
Yeah, thanks, Jack. I think I'm going to go for F45. I know it's a huge brand in the space. And I think what's interesting about them is, you just mentioned format is that they do their format the way they do it. It may not be for everybody, the workout, but it's just very consistent. And so I think in the same way that the format is very consistent, the hospitality side of it is as well. They don't have a lot of facilities in most of their clubs. Often when you arrive, the check-in is actually just done at a small desk. They don't have a big reception area, but they've clearly got their standards and the way they do things. And I think, if you look at some of the best hotels in the world, I think Four Seasons is a great example, because people like Four Seasons because you could go to a Four Seasons anywhere in the world and you'll get a similar kind of feel and a similar experience because everything is done in a fairly formulaic way. Now, I think that sort of lends itself quite well to a concept like F45, where in some ways it's quite a simple setup, but when you go there, you immediately feel comfortable if you've, for example, been to an F45 in one city and then you go to another, because things are done quite well. And I feel that they've been very well trained. They've got their process. They definitely do their very best to welcome you when you come in, even though perhaps they don't have the same reception area, as I said. And so for me, I think it's about consistency with them. What they do very well.
Yeah, F45 is an interesting one for me because within the fitness industry and certain markets, people within the fitness industry don't always think highly of F45. I mean, an example would be Australia, just because you could kind of call it a boom or a bust. Now, speaking to people within F45, they think they can have a comeback, but it was huge. They were very early, and then they had a bad period, and F45s were closing down, and other brands were coming up. And actually, when we launched in the US and there were some high-scoring clubs, a few people from Australia said, oh, that doesn't seem quite right that F45 would score so well. And I think that was their own biases coming in, what they personally felt about the brand or the workout. But actually, we don't look at that. We look at the experience. And in many markets, such as America, it was still booming. No one knew any of the troubles that they were having in Australia. So I just found it was interesting that the industry didn't necessarily feel great about the brand, but in many markets, the consumer still did. And I actually think some people from certain brands came to me and said, oh, I don't think it should have scored highly. Either they own operate a brand or they visit another brand. But actually, those particular brands, I think, could just learn a lot from F45. And again, not it from the workout perspective necessarily. They've got their own method, their own way of doing things, but in terms of how they manage to do this consistently across over 1,000 locations globally. So absolutely agree. They've scored possibly the most consistently across different markets. I think pretty much every F45 has got at least 80%, with many scoring 90%. Their Flatiron, New York location was one of the highest scoring of any visits that we've done. So yeah, definitely a good one to start with. For me, Matthew, I'm going to start with, and this is actually one that I haven't been to yet personally, but Solid Core. It's the most consistently high-scoring Pilates brand. Pilates is absolutely booming now, as anyone who has even a passing interest in fitness will know, and they've just consistently scored the highest. Pilates has been the second lowest scoring brand overall. Yoga's been the lowest scoring, then Pilates, which is interesting, and I think really highlights an opportunity. And one of the reasons I've highlighted Solid Core is that they've had a massive exit. So the founder had a big exit. They then sold again to another private equity firm, I believe, I think valuing around 700, although it's not public, 700 to 750 million. So they're obviously doing a lot of things right. We can obviously learn a lot from them. The founder talks a lot about how she rewarded her staff, gave them sort of bonuses when she had her exit. It seems like they have a very, very strong culture. We've had quite a few conversations with the team over the years since we launched, and there does appear to be a very strong culture. They have staff who are dedicated to ensuring the experiences of a high quality regionally. We've spoken to coaches and managers even, and they all seem to love working for Solid Core and love the brand. And I think that really shows in the experience as well. The final thing I find interesting about Solid Core is they do actually have a low staff model within the club. So many of the coaches and instructors are checking people in, or it's all done through the app. And I always find it interesting when there's not many staff, but they can still deliver consistently high standards. So it appears as though in the branch they don't have too many staff, but they do have a lot behind the scenes that are making sure these things are done well and done consistently. So yeah, Solid Core is definitely a good one for me. Any others that stick out for you, Matt?
Yeah, just before we move on, I was just thinking about Solid Core, and you mentioned culture, and the best hotels that I work with, I find that it's not just that they've got the standards, they really build it into their culture, and people buy into it, because you can have all the standards in the world and people can be trained on them, but if people don't buy into it, you're not going to deliver that. So it's great to hear that they've got such a good culture.
100%.
Yeah, so moving on, I'm going to go for another mega brand, I guess, in Orange Theory. And the reason I mention them is, from my hospitality background, I think Orange Theory was the one club that I've been to. I've been to a couple, I think maybe 3 of their locations. I felt when I walked in that same feeling that I get when I walk into one of the top hotel brands. It was just clear that they've been extremely well trained on every aspect of the process, from the arrival experience all the way through to when you depart. They're very consistent, again, a little bit like F45, but I think what they do slightly differently is they really take some of those elements of 5-star hospitality that we've spoken about, things like genuine interest, anticipatory service, personalization using name usage, and they're just yeah, they just hit it every time. And I think for some people that could seem a little bit cookie cutter, but from somebody that, from my background, that kind of really appreciates those fine details, I think they've really nailed it. They've obviously got great standards, great training, and again, I think it feels, at least, like the team members really buy into it and they're really on board with it. I would imagine they're quite well incentivized to do these things. They've got a great sales process, but yeah, they've just nailed it. And I think that for that reason, Orange Theory is on my list.
I haven't really heard you talk about any of the brands you visited quite in that way, like in terms of how they've clearly built the systems and clearly built the training. It just feels very structured and very systemized in a way that I don't think any other brand has really quite managed to grasp in such a sort of high quality way. Again, another interesting one. So Orange Theory, again, it's been around for a very long time. In certain markets, it hasn't done well. And actually, it was someone from Singapore, it was a gym owner from there, who said they were surprised that Orange Theory had scored quite well. And exactly as I said with F45, it was exactly the same thing. They saw it coming to Singapore. It didn't do well there for whatever reason. Could have been the operators there, could have been the marketing. Not quite sure why it didn't work. But again, they were surprised, not knowing that from the experience side, from the hospitality side, especially in the US, they're just doing it fantastically well. And again, they might not like the Orange Theory workout. This person was probably, you would describe them as pretty much a high performance athlete. So Orange Theory isn't really for them. It's more of a brand that's for, sort of beginners to intermediate. It can cater for more advanced people. So because it wasn't for them and because they didn't personally like it, they couldn't understand why it was scored well. But once I explained our process and what we look for and how we do look at the experience, they kind of got it a little bit more. I think it's one of the common misconceptions with what we do at the Fit Guide. Okay, the next one for me, I mean, you highlighted F45. I'm going to highlight another Australian strength and conditioning brand, and really many of the things I'm going to say are going to be similar to what you said with F45, which is body fit training, or often referred to as BFT. Now, really a lot of the same things as F45. They consistently score very, very well. A lot of their locations have a low staffing model, like F45. Maybe some of them don't have showers or only have a couple of showers, but they've scored extremely well in the class experience. So the few visits we've done where reception services haven't scored as well, they've made up for that in class experience. We've visited, many different territories. Most of the territories we've been to a BFT, and all of them have scored 80%. Many of them have scored 90%, 5-star. Very systemized. The workouts up on the screen. The technology is very good. They have their own heart rate monitoring system that they use, wearable technology that integrates into the workout very well. So they always score our technology points that we have around that. So yeah, very similar to F45 in just the consistency and how they've delivered that. And again, they've got many locations. They've sold hundreds of territories over the US since Exponential acquired the brand in the US. They continue to expand into new markets, into the UK. So again, there's a common theme here with the brands that open hundreds of locations or thousands of locations, that they're doing things well. That's really, there's no accident when you see these brands doing it. So a lot of the same reasons as F45. I think in some way F45 paved the way in terms of building systems and scaling in the way that they've done. BFT, I think, with their own spin, their own approach, have also done it very, very well, and we're seeing them be successful in many markets. Exponential has recently trimmed down to 5 brands from 11. So they're really focusing on their core offerings of fitness. They recently dropped Lindora, which is kind of their weight loss, GLP-1 sort of nutrition and health coaching brand. And they're doubling down on their big 5 fitness brands. And BFT has survived that coal, and they're still one of them. So yeah, shout out to them. And we actually have the founder of BFT coming on the show to share some of his secrets as well, Cameron Falloon. So excited for that one. All right, Matt, back at you.
Okay, so I'm going to go with Physique 57, because I just think that, well, I mean, we should say, obviously, Jennifer, the founder, is a close personal friend, and she's been on the show. We've spoke with her at different events in Vegas, for example, at HFA. She is a great example of a founder that just lives and breathes hospitality, right? Yep. She speaks so passionately about it, and that's why we love talking to her. And if you look at how well her clubs have done, the ones that we visited, it just shows that this mindset really filters down from the top. Now, once you expand to hundreds and thousands, of course, you really need those great systems and processes in place to carry it through, and they've definitely got those. But with the number that they've got, she's able to be really hands-on, really get everybody on board with the kind of things that she's looking for and what she believes in. And it's just a great experience. I mean, I haven't visited, I have to say myself, I haven't done a class there, but looking through all the reports, speaking to people that have been, speaking to Jennifer, you can just see that all of those real elements of hospitality, that first impression, the journey throughout the whole experience, making sure that people feel that sense of community, that everything is done so well. And yeah, it's just, I think it's quite heartwarming to see how her passion has filtered down, and that brand has just done so well because of their focus on hospitality.
Yeah, what was interesting about Physique 57's success with the Fit Guide for me was just seeing early on in our journey back in 2023 when we first launched New York, is just how purposeful the experience was, how she built it with hospitality in mind, how it was one of their values, hospitality, at Physique 57. And this is a time before we'd even been speaking about this kind of thing publicly. And it was absolutely no accident that she scored so well. And of course, we've since spoke at HFA, and she's detailed sort of, the Fit Guide and what we do and how she scored so well and how she builds her experiences to be consistent. And, all visits have been over 90%, which has been rare for a brand, right? Scoring 5 stars every single time that we visited. So that was an interesting one for me, for sure. Okay, my turn. So this one, it's Rumble Boxing. So this one, it's a little bit of my own personal view coming in, because I did Rumble Boxing when I first went to New York. Well, I think it was my second visit back in 2018. Absolutely loved it. Did 3 or 4 classes there. It just so happened that we were in LA when the week after, when they launched their studio there. So we did one of the first classes in LA, and we spoke to the founder and a few of the founding instructors. And so I have a bit of a personal sort of connection with the brand. So I looked closely at the reports. Spoke to our evaluators that went there, and they just consistently do a lot of the things that we experienced, me and my then girlfriend, now wife, when we went to those Rumble Boxings. They have a good connection with the client before they go in the room. There's a fist bump on the way in and on the way out, so you get that touch point both in and out, which is a nice touch. And there's lots of interaction, there's lots of touch points. Even during the very busy classes, the instructor gets off the stage and they interact with people on an individual level. Now, I recently did a water bag boxing concept in another city, totally different brand, won't name which one, and they didn't do this. It was quite a fun class, it was quite good, but the instructor was just there on the stage. There was a lot of people lost, there was a lot of people not doing things correctly. It was very busy, there was a lot of people, and I just couldn't help but think, well, I've seen at Rumble how they get onto the floor, they give you some encouragement, they tweak your form and technique even when there's like 20, 30 people in the class. I think it was a great example of when it's packed, when it's busy, when you've got this big lively concept of loud music, you can still have that personal connection. And then on the way out, there's the fist bump. It kind of really completes and rounds off the workout. Andy Stern is one of the main men at Rumble Boxing. I think he was there in the very beginning. He talks a lot publicly about the kind of things that we look for, how ways to train the coaches to connect with clients, the importance of experience. And again, we've got him coming on the show soon as well. So he's going to share some of the Rumble Boxing secrets as well. So really excited for that interview and excited to share his insights with our listeners as well. So we've got any more, Matt? Any more spring to mind for you?
Well,
we had Orange Theory, F45, Physique,
when we were
Solid Core.
Earlier, I know that you had so many brands in your mind that you wanted to mention. So I think just before, I'll give you the last one, but
sure.
But I think just before we sort of move on, I think that looking at the brands that we've looked at so far, I think it's nice that there's a good mix of the sort of bigger brands and then the smaller ones as well. I think that obviously the bigger brands probably have the capital behind them to really invest in training and to get those processes. And of course, when you're really expanding, that's so important, because trying to get everybody, throughout different countries doing the same thing can be difficult. And actually, one thing I just thought of as well about Orange Theory is I know that, for example, I won't name them, but there were a couple that we visited that didn't score quite as well, and it's interesting to see that at least one of them doesn't exist anymore. And I think that they are so strong on maintaining that same level that if a particular location isn't quite meeting those standards, then it's maybe falls off the list. And so,
was that one outside of the US?
It was outside of the US.
Yeah. So I think we have seen a bit of a discrepancy there, right? I think it's not been quite as strong in other markets. They've scored quite well, but it's been a little bit more of a range. I think US was more consistent.
Yeah, but then again, you've mentioned a couple, but I think that it can be done on a smaller scale if you've got a good founder, good standards. If you've actually developed those, just because you're a smaller brand doesn't mean that you shouldn't have those standards and really buy into the hospitality. And when you do expand, if you do expand, you've got that in place then, and hopefully you can replicate from one place to another. So yeah, I'll throw the last one back to you, Jax. I know you had a few names that you wanted to mention.
Yeah, I wanted to give a few special mentions, but yeah, again, I think it's worth mentioning again, like you've just said, like if you have an independent studio, don't look down your nose at some of these ones who you might feel might be a bit corporate or, a bit too big. It's like I hear so many people in F&B say, I want to learn from McDonald's. And it's not because the burgers are fantastic, right? That's not why they want to do it, but it's because they are better than anyone else in terms of systemization and scaling. So if you want to have a well systemized business that can run without you, maybe you can sell one day, or if you want to scale internationally, go and look at what some of these brands do. Not like the people that I spoke to that kind of look down their noses at it, really think, okay, these guys are doing something right. What can I learn from them? If you have a coffee shop and you want to expand, you might not like Starbucks coffee, but go and see what they're doing and see what you can learn. In terms of special shout outs, special mentions, I mean, I really wanted to put in Metabolic, but we just haven't really visited enough of their locations. We've done 2 visits, one scored 5-star, one scored Award of Excellence. And one of the reasons I really wanted to get it in here is because we've had a lot of conversations, of course, with Brandon Cullen, and he just so buys into what we're doing. They've obviously got a very strong culture there because we've spoken to the franchisees as well, who speak so highly of how they do things. He bought into what we do so much. He shared our report amongst all of his franchisees and said, look, this is a great example of the things that we need to be doing. And also they don't necessarily have all the things that lend itself well to scoring well in our process. Like, for example, the one in Brooklyn and New York that we visited doesn't have showers. So they really need to go above and beyond because they're missing some of the things that we look for, and they still got 5 stars. So I think that's really something that's worth mentioning. Do jump in, Matt, if there's any other brands, but a few other ones that I think have done well and just deserve a little mention. So Pvolve, we've only been to one location in LA. It got 5 stars. They are expanding quickly across the States. I had a good look through the report and I spoke to the evaluator, the anonymous experience evaluator, and they just spoke very highly. And again, it was very clear there was a purposeful design there. So let's call that one to look out for sure. And they're expanding quickly across the US. Pure Bar have also done well. They very almost made my list. But again, every single one's got 80%. Some of them have got 90%. And it looks like a fairly low staff model as well. They don't have tons of staff. What's interesting, Matt, and again, I don't want to speak to the brands that haven't scored as well consistently, but some of them have huge amounts of staff. I've been to clubs that have had 3, 4 front desk staff. It looks like they even have some sort of GM or manager behind the front desk. And a lot of them are missing the standards that some clubs, even with just the instructor checking people in, are managing to hit. Have you seen that in any of your visits?
I have seen that, and I think you see it in all aspects of hospitality, where it's not just a case of adding more staff. I went into a high-end boutique fashion place yesterday in Milan whilst I was there, not because I was shopping there, but because there was a cafe there that we wanted to go to, and it was the same kind of thing. They had staff everywhere, but nobody came and sort of said hello or greeted us or offered any kind of service whatsoever. And I thought, you've got 20 staff here, and that's great, but not a single person said hello. And yeah,
it'd be interesting to know if there's even a correlation.
Right.
Yeah, I'd be interested to know if there's a correlation between more staff and better scores or better service.
I mean, you mentioned Solidcore. They've got quite a low staffing model, but you're better having, a few really good staff that you've really trained on hospitality, rather than think, oh, we're not doing so well on the service side, so let's just put more staff in, because there's definitely, I mean, you've got to have enough staff to cope with the number of people you've got coming through the door, clearly. But up to a certain point, I think after that, you're better off having, some really strong people that buy into your culture, understand the aspect of hospitality that you're looking for. So I think that's a really good point, Jack.
I mean, we talked about on previous episodes, it doesn't need to cost money. You don't need all the qualifications in the world. You don't need to have gone to university to study hospitality to do these things right. And for the most part, you don't need more staff a lot of the time, as long as the basics can be met. A couple of other final shout outs, and if there's any more, Matt, you can think of, do shout. The Bar Method has scored well. Again, always 80%. They are doing a good job. And the Cobble Hill location in New York got over 90%. A couple from Singapore, my neck of the woods. So UFit scored very well, but again, again, only one visit. WeBar was the same as well, 1 or 2 visits, but they've always scored very well. And again, Linda Tang, the founder and CEO of that company, was on the podcast recently, so she said some of her insights. Finally, and again, this one is almost scored as well as Solid Core if you sort of took their average score. Definitely the second best performing Pilates brand, and that's Vora Pilates. So they are under the F45. What is it called now? They have a new acronym, FIT. House of Brands, I believe it is. So they're under the same umbrella as F45. I'm sure they've taken some of the same playbook. We've done quite a few Vora Pilates evaluations. Sydney, it was the only 5-star scoring club. In New York recently, it won Award of Excellence, and we did a couple of visits to that club, and it was always over 80%. So that's another one that I think deserves a little shout out.
I'll mention a quick one. Again, it's definitely not one that I visited personally, but Bunda in NLA.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I spoke to the evaluator that went there, and she just raved about it. She said the second she walked in, it was bubbly, it was lively. They've really gone for that fun aspect, and you get really well welcomed. You know, there's high fives right from the off, and they've obviously, you can probably tell by the name, they've got that sort of fun concept, but again, hospitality can be delivered in different ways, right? So you can, if your way of doing it is a bit fun and casual, it doesn't have to be stuffy like some of the top hotel brands. You can use different language, but they've just built in this fun concept of hospitality that just works for their particular brand. And so it was really interesting having that conversation with the evaluator that did it, because she was absolutely raving about it, and it scored nice. Well.
Yeah, I think it's nice. Through our process, we also look at the website. One of our standards is whether the values or the mission or the vision is stated within the website. And it's quite interesting from an evaluation perspective, brands that sort of hang their hat on fun or experience or inclusivity. And then you go and visit, and we have a look at the report, and we speak to the evaluator, and whether they match up to what their stated values are. And I think that sounds like a good example of, they say they're this, the brand shouts this, and you go there and it actually is this. There's a couple, and again, we won't mention the ones that haven't scored well, but the website has all been about community. We welcome everyone. We love welcoming new people to our type of training. And then you look at the evaluation report, and no one there made any effort to connect with us or to talk us through the workout or anything. So I think that's a good example there of like really living and breathing what you say you are, which is crucial for any brand experience. Now, Matt, I feel a little bit bad because there are just so many great brands that we haven't been able to mention. And I think there's many that we haven't mentioned that once we visit more cities, once we go back next year, will certainly be included on this list. There's probably too many to mention. Anyone can just go to thefitguide.com and see all of the clubs that have scored well. There's many Award of Excellence winners that we haven't been able to mention that scored very well, and also 5-star club winners as well. So excited to do another one of these to follow up next year. Hopefully these brands still stay on there and they still maintain their consistency, and we hope to be talking about many more as well. Thank you, Matt, for joining, and we'll see everybody on the next episode of the 5-Star Fitness podcast.